So, yes, I'll marry you.
Oh.
I mean, I fell in love with the man I was chatting with online. Age is nothing but a number, right?
Oh, Amelia, you made me feel young. Come here.
I love this man.
I love you.
Well, I actually came here to persuade you to come stay at my place until we sort the whole thing out, okay?
Great. Let the cab take us.
All right, sexy. Let's go. Oh, easy, sexy, easy. That's my man.
They're like hunters searching for meat. It doesn't matter where he comes from, as long as he's white and has lots of money. He could be young or old, it really doesn't matter, as long as he's white and available.
And I don't like when people date outside their race like it's a fetish or a fantasy. Like, that bothers me because I love black people.
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
I don't really want to be the poster child for interracial relationships because I'm not really the biggest advocate of it. And that throws people off, but I'm like, it's not that easy. And I don't like when people date outside their race like it's a fetish. That bothers me because I love black people. I love black men. I think they're beautiful. So, and he understands that. Like, I don't want him to feel like he's my token, like, savior. That's not it. Like, I love you because you're a good person, but there's a lot of good black men too. And I try to get that point across because it often hurts my feelings when people compliment my relationship because he's not black.
Right.
That irritates me. They're like, oh, well, it's because you have white men, or he's white and Asian.
Or I need to go get one of the...
In search of a white man, the white man, white man, the white man, white man. In search of a whitey, a whitey, whitey, a whitey, whitey.
You know, you need to get you somebody who loves you and who's faithful to you, regardless of what they look like. So I think that's why I try to share that love is something it is beyond color, but you have to have more than love to make a relationship work, especially if you're going to date outside your race. It's super important to be strong. You have to be strong in who you are, and your relationship has to be strong.
Very, very, very interesting. You know, as I mentioned before, I've always affirmed that there's a difference, in my opinion, between, divesting, or AKA those who, in my opinion, use dating outside of their race as a way to just kind of hate on black men and essentially the whole black community. I've always distinguished between those who actually just happen to fall in love with somebody of another ethnicity, which, by the way, is a lot more common if you do grow up in a more affluent area, or if you go to college, or if you go to, areas that are multicultural. It's gonna be more common. Like, I think what people sometimes don't always understand is that cultural loyalty is something that is taught to a certain extent, right? It is instilled in you from your parents, from the people who are around you, from your elders. Having a sense of cultural pride is something that is taught at home. You're not going to be getting it in schools. Definitely not if you're a black person. You're not going to be getting it in mainstream society in a way that essentially the entire black community is feeling uplifted. And so if you're one who, really believes in the importance of maintaining your culture and wanting to ensure that your kids have a proper understanding and a healthy pride, and also themselves want to procreate and recreate their culture by marrying somebody in it, then those are things that are, again, taught at home. But sometimes I think what happens is, because it's, America's very much a melting pot, it's very individualistic. People are kind of like, do you boo, find love, you find love. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that per se, but when you have that being somewhat of a cultural ethos, which of like, yeah, just go where you're loved, or marry out and go with somebody who works for you. Again, nothing wrong with that, but that's going to ultimately compromise the culture. Meaning, at a certain point, if you have an increasing number of people who are dating out and marrying out, eventually your culture is going to die out. Like if the amount of those who are dating and marrying out supersedes those who are procreating among themselves. So I thought this video was interesting because so often on social media, there is this trend of people in interracial relationships kind of, you know, pushing this agenda or narrative of like, oh, I'm happier because I dated out. You see that especially in Black women and kind of like the divesting space, and sometimes even in the swirling space, where they can sometimes teeter with this idea of like, I'm happy because he's white. And then sometimes it's just downright like explicitly said.
Come on, he's a white man. I stand to inherit 75% of 250 million pounds. Do you know how much that is? I can't believe this. You better believe it. I am going to love that man till his dying days.
Like, I'm only going with a white guy. I'm only happy because he's white, or white guys should be better. Like, sometimes it's just completely explicit. And so it's not so common that you see somebody who's actually in an interracial relationship, married, to my understanding she's actually married, and they're honest about it. So I appreciate her being honest, where it's just like, yeah, I fell in love with a person. That doesn't mean Black people or Black men are any lesser than, and doesn't mean our relationship is perfect. Obviously, it's not perfect. Obviously, there's going to be challenges that she has. Obviously, there's going to be different tensions associated with it being interracial. Like, that's honest and that's real. I really appreciate her being honest about that, because that is reality. And I've always asserted that whether you decide to marry intraracially, right, or that somebody intraracially, right, somebody in your own race, or you decide to marry interracially, somebody outside of your race, you still need to have good relationship skills. You still got to have good communication skills. You still have to know how to work with somebody else. That isn't just like, go away because the person is white or because the person is of your own ethnicity. And, you know, again, she obviously reiterated that, somebody who is married, but men are men, women are women. And so I appreciate her being honest about the fact that interracial relationships are still a relationship that have two people that have to figure out how to work together. When you add the cultural dynamics, that is another level of pressure, or that is another barrier. It's not to say you can't work through it, not to say you can't still be happy, but let's not act like it's going to be easier. It's not necessarily. It's going to bring a different set of challenges. So I appreciate her actually being honest about an interracial relationship and then not using it as a reason to completely hate on the Black community or Black men, which is very common. I appreciate that. But anyways, guys, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this video, or just your thoughts on interracial relationships in general? Are any of you in interracial relationships, and what has that been like? What's that journey been like for you? Let me know. Leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comment section below. Thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later, okay? Bye.